recording in progress.
Oh, too late, Dave.
No, way too late. All right.
Not way too late, but just I would say like half a second off. But I feel
couldn't remember if there was a confirmation box. So I was waiting for the confirmation box, and then by the time Karen had gone, it was...
I think the thing is because you've done so well in the past with matching the Zoom woman, like even if you're off by half a second, which still isn't that long, it just sounds, like you're just not as good as...
I'm in the latter half of my career. I'm resting on my laurels. It's all gone completely out the window.
Yeah, I feel like it was a very lethargic attempt at
the
Zoom women there. And I mean, you're saying, was there a pop-up of...
Can I say it's 2:30? I've had a little bit to drink.
Good job, Hal. So we have a guest. We have a guest today. Yay! for our October special. So rather than we've all gone through our own favourite horrors, and now we invited guest of honour, Sophie's dad, JP, to pick his favourite. So JP, what were we watching this week?
So Psycho, and the reason, as I understand the brief, was to pick something that I've enjoyed in the past, sort of thing. And I'm not one for rewatching films, horror or otherwise, to be honest, because once the game's up, you stop being surprised usually. But
it weirds me out, but that is true. You're not. I don't know how I became such a movie rewatcher when you are really not a movie rewatcher at all. It's very strange to me, Dad.
Yeah, and and something like The Sixth Sense, for instance, you've seen it once, it's all over, isn't it? Really.
Still creepy though, I think.
Yeah, but creepy for different reasons probably than the actual plot of the film. But Psycho's one that I can watch because of that sort of feeling that hangs over it, and the photography, all that sort of stuff, the angles, and being a bit of a Hitchcock lover. I think that's one of the best films he's done, not only from a horror perspective, but sort of broadly, and just the elements that come together, the music, the angles, the shots. So I can watch that over and over again and still, well, I don't jump as much, but I can still be a bit surprised. And the timing is always wonderful, even if you know that it's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, Sophie, I'm assuming you first saw it with your dad.
I was actually thinking about that, and it has to have been. Like, I can't, I think all of those classic horrors, like the first time I saw them 100% would have been with like Dad and maybe Seb, but like always with Dad. But then I've seen it, like Hitchcock I've rewatched a bunch of times, and I don't even know if I've rewatched it with you, Dad, but like I've seen it because it's a great movie, and I feel like I have a soft spot in my heart for Hitchcock because JP has a soft spot in his heart for Hitchcock, and I was conditioned by my parents to love the things that they love. And but yeah, 100% I would have. But I was trying to work out like how old I would have been, but I don't know. Like I remember watching like the abominable Dr. Phibbs or whatever his name is. Like I must have been. I reckon I was only like 11 or something when we watched that. So I reckon Hitchcock would have been earlier because I reckon that one's more troubling than Psycho.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah, just because that's a good one for the list, guys, for future time. But yeah, it would have been some late childhood, early teenage years watched, Psycho, 100%.
Yeah, so clearly that was my failing as a parent, exposing children to all sorts of unreasonable.
Look at me now. We do a weekly thing where we drink and we talk about horror movies because JP raised me badly.
Also, don't get us started on how young Dave was when he started watching some scary
movies. Oh, yeah, that's true.
That was really problematic.
Yeah, I think I saw Aliens when I was 7.
That's too early, Dave.
Yeah.
My parents were of the opinion that it's kind of, this is just something you need to be exposed to and just ask questions about it and just grow up knowing that these things exist and that's not acceptable that violence happens, but I don't know.
So it was a bit like Terror 101, was it?
It was, yeah. It's just like, just chuck him in the deep end, see how he does.
And yet, I was going to say, do you remember that time that we watched Elf with Franca, at least? I don't know if Aldo was there, and all she wanted to do was tell Seb and Izzy about the violence. And like, Elf is predominantly a not violent film. And there's one scene where like Will Ferrell or someone else throws the other one over Elf, like the Christmas movie. And there's one bit where Will Ferrell or someone else are fighting and someone throws someone else over the table, and it's all Franca reported to Seb and Izzy, and it's like we watched a whole movie with music and like Christmas and fun and like cheer, and it's like so I just can you imagine showing, because Franca's 7,
8,
can you imagine showing Franca Alien?
No, I really can't.
so inappropriate. Yeah.
Apparently the line, so I only saw the first half of the film and then I saw the second half years later. But apparently I saw the first half of the film and I turned around at one point to my parents and very carefully said, Mummy, Daddy, I'm not scared. I'm just quite tired, so I might go to bed.
Oh,
That's very cute.
When I was 7. And it was because I got to pick the movie. They were like, what do you want to watch? And I went and picked something off the shelf and it was Aliens.
And they went, okay, that's
Yeah, all right, this was
watching.
It's what the man wants to watch. So
I'm not scared, I'm just tired. I'm going to use that from now on.
I was scared.
Yeah.
so JP, when did you first see Psycho? Do you remember?
No, I don't, to be honest. I mean, it was, clearly before Sophie. I suspect probably not long after it was made, I think. I go back, a year or two before Sophie. So it was such a long time ago, I really can't remember, Karen. But I have to admit, the whole, even the non-horror, getting back to Hitchcock, just the way he approaches films, or I guess the latter year films, like Birds is one of my favourite films that I can watch over and over again, because that sense of nature having a shot at you sort of thing, is it's a bit pissed off with you, is pretty good, really. So yeah, like I said, sort of ages that I really can't remember. And for me, it's interesting actually. The black and white stuff I think adds just to the feel of the film. It's a bit like, I think, photography in general. I think it's much easier to capture mood and emotion and sentiment and stuff in black and white photos. To do that with colour is almost harder, because sometimes I think the colour's a distraction in terms of some things. And like I said, the prevailing mood of the film appeals to me so much. That music that gives you that sense, impending sense of terror or whatever. It's just so good. And the fact that it zeroes in, I'd forgotten how close the camera gets to people's faces in that film.
Yes, very much so.
A lot of very big faces. We've got a reasonably sized television to watch movies, and so we saw some very big faces indeed.
That's right, almost the scale of the Marshmallow Man. And as I forgot the name, isn't it terrible? But the
Janet Leigh.
Thank you. Janet Leigh in her car driving away, with a big steering wheel and a big face, and that music, that sense of doom music, just sort of following her in the car. Just love all that stuff, I have to admit.
Yeah, so we watched it last night, and we both realised that I think we've only separately but seen it once before.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that happened, because it is one that I could imagine watching again and again. But I think I watched it maybe back in my late teens, possibly. And then, it's one of these films that you can summarize quite briefly, but the iconic shower scene, both of us realized was all that we could actually remember about the film. Yeah. So we started it and we were hooked from the beginning. So we were we don't know we know what's going to happen, but we don't know what's going on in this film. We actually don't know. We forgot about the robbery. We forgot that she was trying to get married to this dude. We just had no idea. So I mean, usually we have a wee laugh chatting to each other watching films. And Sophie, we like to zoom back and repeat things.
The things that make Karen and Dave laugh is the sentence. Often they watch it a bunch of times and I get a text message that might have a picture of the screen or just a quote.
And a GIF if you're really lucky.
Yeah, maybe a GIF, and that means that we've hit a bit that is a bit funny, and then they've
Well, but, I started to get moments of because I did do that initially, because I also love some context screen text and big writing, and so it does give you your December the 11th, and then it gives you your precise time to a minute 43. I have to laugh at that kind of stuff. I'm is this really important? But these are the kind of things that stick in my head. But then from then on, I was totally taking it seriously. I was well, you gave me a date, you gave me a time. We're now in this hotel room, and I'm right in there. I'm right in there with you.
And the opening of the film is so effective. Even from the titles, the titles are great. Yeah. They're so effective for the age of the film. So good, and just they don't look old at all. And then there's this great series of panning shots where we get closer and closer to the office window, And like these days, it would just be done in one continuous shot. Like you with interpolation, you would just start really, really far away and you would just end up in the room. But it's just this really simple series of consecutive panning shots that get closer and closer until we're into the room with them, but we're still panning away. That just gave it the sense of continuity without having the actual camera do that thing. That was fabulous and really, really effective introduction to the movie. Really good.
What's funny, because it, like, Karen, you just remind me that, you know, because obviously I've seen this movie a bunch of times, but I haven't seen it. I can't remember the last time I did see it. And I forgot about the stolen money as well. Because I was like, why is it that she ends up in that hotel? There's the guy, and then what? And I was like, that's what I was like, okay, there was the crazy man with the hat, and he's going to buy a house, and he's got like 40K in cash, and she's meant to take it to the bank, and then she bails because her boyfriend has debt. I was just like, I forgot about that. Was like, that's why she was then like on it. Because then everything else, like, because it's funny, the scene that I remember the most, and obviously we're going to talk about this chronologically, and I'm going to spoil it, is at the end. Well, let's not spoil it for I don't know, can you have spoilers for a 60-year-old movie?
Must be.
Yeah, it was 1960. Yeah.
I don't think you can have spoilers for a 60-year-old movie, but yeah, like at the end when like the mother turns around, like that's the scene that I remember. I feel like that was the one that shocked me. But yeah, there's a lot of, it's just very good. But yeah, so yeah, do we want a chronology? What are we doing, people?
Well, yeah, like, so yeah,
like you say, it's a well-established film.
simple film.
I mean,
but
basically,
yeah,
we've just said the plot, right? Like, so, and then the fact that she, but even like, yeah, the bit, I forgot how tense it was when she's being like followed by the cop. And then I
found that so scary.
I was really stressed out for her, and I knew how it was going to go, but it's like watching her, and it's just like she's being followed by the cop. She's been quite antagonistic to the cop.
Yeah.
Like gets it sorted, like thinks that she's left him, and then like goes to like swap out her car because she's worried, and then he just like pops up, and I was just like, you got to be more careful, love. He's still here. He's watching you.
Yeah.
She was one of the most suspicious people I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that feeling kind of kicks off even earlier, but when she's in the car and it's silent, and then she sees her boss, and JP, you were talking about the music, like she sees her boss and then she drives off, and that might even be when that music first starts up, that that happens all through the film. And it almost is like, that is you're right, that's the foreboding, that's the like something bad is about to happen. And then when there's actual silence, that's when something bad might actually be about to now happen for real.
You just like the tension just gets built like so well.
Yeah.
I think from that, because even that where it's like he sees her, she realizes it's him, he does the double take, and it's just like, what are you going to do now? Like, it's just and that's like the very beginning. And then and so then we're driving along, and
the stakes are so high. The stakes are so high, and all she's doing is Skyping off work. All she's doing is Skyping off work, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so intense.
Yeah, because because he doesn't know that she's taken that 40,000, and at that point too, like, because I again, you know how I love like very small scenes in films that really establish character, and so even just her after having her rendezvous with her beau,
with a gentleman lover,
and then going back to work after her lunch break, and then just the banter she has with her colleague, two women in their office. And then, that obnoxious man. And you're kind of like, I want you to lose your 40,000, except really it's the company that loses it. But you're also just like, oh, I spent the whole time in that scene just wanting her to punch him, but then just really kind of admiring her.
But she sat there politely.
Like, but she didn't like humor him. She wasn't flirting with him. She was just like, yep, okay. So you got her character quickly then, but you didn't feel like there was any animosity necessarily between her and her colleagues or her boss. And so when you get to that scene where she's in her room packing the case, part of you's like, and clearly going to take the money, you're like, oh no, please don't do that. No, like, this isn't you. What are you doing? I totally get why you're doing it. And so I was sitting there going, oh, just don't, just turn back. And Dave's like, oh, just take the money. Of course you'd take the money. I'm like, no, you wouldn't. And he's like, yeah, just take it. It's 40,000. That's a lot of money.
It's 40 grand 60 years ago.
Yeah, like that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You buy a house with that money, apparently.
Yeah, no, look, I agree, Karen. She almost seemed like too nice a person in some ways to be, to be that, not sinister is not the right word, but to be that evil, to be that,
conniving.
But then, but coming back, but it is believable though, because she does want to marry this man, and he's got all these debts that were his father's debts, and he's also divorced and having to pay alimony. So it's actually, even though she is really nice, she's like, oh, I've got this out here to help him, but what are the consequences going to be for me? But she's determined enough. She goes and she's driving to go and find him. But yeah, you're right, Lynn. We've got the issue with the policeman that's following her, and that's your first kind of
and then the other thing that I think is really effective is, you know, when she's driving and there's the conversations that the other people are having in her head, and it's the thing, it was like, but that's like exactly what, like, I think if I for some reason I stole a bunch of money and then just like left, it's like that's what I would be doing. But like what are the other people saying? Like, what are they thinking? Like, what's going to happen if I get caught? Like, yeah, like how much do people know? And it's like, it's amazing. So you've got this scene playing out in her head of like how everyone is reacting to her bailing. Like, it's really, and even that is like, you know, because obviously they're not having positive conversations. Like, they're worried, but like, where's the money? And they're like, go send her a house. The sister's going to a house. Like, it's fine. And it's just like the whole thing's really stressful.
That's right. It adds to the angst, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah.
The angst.
Yeah.
But she's still quite committed, and she's got to the point where it's like, I think, thinking about her sister. So it's like, it's got to Monday, and she will be noticed to be missing, but she is still on her way to find her man and gets caught in horrendous rain. Should not be on the road driving in that. And so that gets her to Bates Motel.
Yeah, actually, I don't know what you thought of the rain, but as I was watching through that windscreen, I thought, how could she possibly still be on the road?
Yeah.
It was obviously caught in an absolute shower. Like, it was just ripples of light, wasn't it, sort of thing?
Yeah, it was just, and even that is scary, because you're just that's not when anything bad is happening, but you're like, this is so, everything is just like dangerous and putting me on edge right now.
Yeah, and you're kind of zoomed into a little corner of the windscreen, so you've kind of got the steering wheel here, and you're in a little tiny corner, and so everything's really like close, and like you can't see anything peripherally, and it's all very intense. And I was like, how are you still on the road?
Yeah, do you think in thinking about it now, perhaps in a way that's part of why the film's so successful? So things build up, you know, something's going to happen, like, you know, recognized by the boss, but, you know, it's okay, it goes past. She's going to be, you know, caught by the cop. Oh no, that's fine, that goes past. She's in the dreadful rain, is she going to have an accident? No, she's fine. I wonder whether, you know, you start building up the tension to when whatever happens, you know, you're absolutely totally sensitized to something awful happening anyway.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's never any relief. You're right. It's just like tense. Oh no, it's okay, but you're still like, I'm still a bit tense. And then they just like add Hitchcock adds layers and layers and layers. And at no stage do you get like any relief.
She's in these genuinely tense scenarios, talking to the cop, having the awkward, like, pressing conversation with the used car salesman guy.
Yeah, she's like, I just want the car, stop it.
Yeah, so she's in these really tense situations, and then whenever she gets out of a tense situation, the music comes up and goes dun 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 dun. Relentless.
And she can obviously hear that.
Yeah,
the whole point is in her head. It's like
that's the soundtrack to anxiety.
Exactly. When people aren't having conversations about it, it's just dun 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 dun.
It's like my brain. Like, I can totally feel that. But yeah, so she doesn't run off the road in the rain, but she does end up finding her way off the main highway, which is why she gets to a scary motel that no one is staying in. And I mean, Dave was laughing at me this morning chatting about it, because, like, I mean, the looming house over the motel, like, it's pretty scary. But Dave's like, oh, you just think that because of Psycho. And maybe
is that scary, or is that scary because of Psycho?
But I don't know, it's a big scary house on a hill overlooking this empty motel.
And the black and white doesn't help. I feel like the black and white in this particular, exactly as you said, Dad, like that framing of the scary house, or like the motel, it's dark, it's rainy, it's just like, this is a bad idea. Just like, sleep in your car like you did before. Like, it's a better idea.
The house with that light behind, the way that the light behind the house sort of framed, it made it look really, really sinister, I thought.
The haunted house, for sure. And then we get to meet lovely Norman.
Yeah, he seems so lovely.
Sweet, with his little brown eyes, and he's just like really eager, and, you know, they have this like fun interaction, and
sandwiches and milk.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, you know, you must be hungry, like, you're not going to go out to that diner, like, I would love it if you join me for dinner, it's just going to be sandwiches and milk. And but then poor Norman goes back in his house, and his mother just cracks the shit at him.
Oof.
Just, what are you
Very,
doing?
very loudly, like really, like that was a very, very loud conversation.
Yeah, exactly. The distance from like the motel to the closed up house and the closed up motel, and she could just hear that conversation verbatim. Like there was no word that she was just right next to her, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Norman's mum's not very happy that this hussy is in the motel, and of course she can't come up for dinner. No way it's going to happen. And so she can hear it all and is like, all right, it's a bit crazy. But Norman comes back with the sandwiches and the milk and invites her to his little space because he won't go into her. She invites him into her room.
That's right.
Room number 1, but he won't go in there. But he's like, come to my parlor. We can't sit in my office. And then that's really scary because as you go in, you're met with the stuffed owl. Like,
hello.
It's not clear why he won't go into the cabin. So maybe it is literally, no, I can't eat unless I'm surrounded by taxidermied birds.
Yeah, these are my friends
Situation.
now, and I got to enjoy my meal with them. But yeah, he's just he's got his birds everywhere.
But he's very boastful about the taxidermy. You know, he's like, oh, it's not really a hobby. It's you know, it's a life, really. And you know, I don't even know anything about birds. I'm just really good at stuffing them.
But does he not also mention it's quite easy though? Like it's really not a big deal. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
But I also like that, like he makes the distinction, the reason that like he does birds rather than like other animals and stuff. And it's just like, you've just thought about this too much, right? It was just a bit, yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, they're kind of lifeless to begin with, he says.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, exactly. So they look okay, but with like an animal, they look like a different animal. They just look creepy when they're stuffed. And it's just like, yeah, because those birds are sensational. No one has got any creepy vibes from the aggressive owl.
And meanwhile, as well, he's not eating either. He's just watching her eat.
Because he was like, I'm not actually that hungry, but here's the
Have
sandwich. Eat this while I watch you eat this thing. Yeah.
And commenting on her eating like a bird. It's like, this is a bit creepy. But the birds actually eat a lot, and then just really weird conversation.
Right, I think birds would eat a lot because they've got very high metabolism for flight and such.
Yeah. He does. Yeah, he says it's a falsity. He's like, yeah, they do eat a lot.
That makes sense to me. Yeah. I'm 100% behind Norman Bates
at this stage.
I'm going all in. I'm going all in on Norman Bates.
Nothing bad could happen.
And so yeah, in his chat with so it's Marion. Is that her name?
Yeah, her real name is Marion.
Her real name's Marion, but he doesn't know that because she signed the book in the motel as a different name.
She signs it as like Marie
Samuels.
Yeah, she's Marion something.
Crane.
That's right.
So she's trying to help, like, well, not helping, but raising with Norman the fact that maybe his relationship with his mom is a little bit problematic, and he shouldn't put up with this, and maybe he could leave. And they get chat about how he doesn't really have friends. It's just him and his mum. His mum's partner his dad had died when he was very young. His mum's partner had died. He's all she's got. How you couldn't leave. And there's a very dutiful son type thing going on, but like a really hard done that son who is just put up with this idea that he can't go and have other friends or have a relationship because his mom's around. So this is his life in this hotel with no one coming by anymore because it's off the highway.
Yeah. Did you find it interesting? Because I thought at that stage, if I remember rightly, so he was not anti his mother, but clearly she was a problem and, you know, not making his life easy. And then when it was suggested he could change that, became very, very defensive and very supportive, almost like a 360.
Yeah, so it's like he could criticize. Is it fine if he said anything about his mother? You know, like the stuff he said about his mother in a negative way wasn't that negative. It's like it was fine if he did it, but the second anyone else criticized anything about her, he just kind of, or his home or whatever, he would sort of flip, and just then you've got like his cute brown eyes become those slightly creepy, starey brown eyes.
Yeah.
I find that stuff all really relatable though too, because I think that. I think that's quite common where, you know,
your mother is terrible. Marion, you're not terrible. I'm just bantering for the sake of it. She's terrible. She's the worst.
But like, you know, like if you're having a bad day with your family or whatever, you can rant about them, you can complain. But if someone else where like that's not part of your family would say something, you'd be like,
You'd be like,
No,
sorry.
this is
You know,
okay
you
for
would-
me
you
to
get
say,
quite-
but you don't know.
Yeah.
You can't say anything.
It's true. Yeah, you get quite defensive.
But where
That's
he
right.
got particularly angry, I think, was the suggestion that because she was unwell and he couldn't leave her, and mentally unwell was the idea that she had to get put into a special facility.
Yeah, he really did not like the idea of that special facility. That made him very crazy-eyed and angry. Yeah.
Yeah, that was almost a doubling up effect with the mother chat, and then the Madhouse chat was very kind of yeah,
One of those places. Yeah, he was.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that.
So we learned that he somehow has definitely been in one of those places, whether as a visitor, staff member, or in it. But he certainly does not approve of them, and you wouldn't put his mum in there. So.
But
Yeah,
then
that was a lovely dinner, a lovely gentle dinner they had.
Yeah, and then Marion's like, well, I've got to go to bed because I've got to go really early. Go leave.
They kind of reconnect, don't they? They
They
kind of
do,
reconnect.
yeah.
They have this chat about traps and the way that people are trapped within themselves, and they have their own set of problems and they try to escape, but it's really important to try and struggle against those traps.
And then, then actually, you're right. And it convinces her. She's like, I need to leave. I need to leave early tomorrow. So I have to go to bed now because I need to leave early tomorrow because I'm going to go back to Phoenix. So this conversation, you're right, has changed her perspective. And she's like, basically, without saying it, I'm going to go back and give all that fucking money back.
Yeah.
Before it's too late.
Yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? Another one of those things you're thinking, if you hadn't seen the film, you think, well, you know, she's turned the corner. She's going to go back. She's going to be safe. So it's another one of those things that's almost a little false sense of something or other that then just changes yet again.
And the good thing is it changes really quickly because she goes back into her room and it turns out that Norman can look through holes into her room and
the old peephole behind the painting, eh?
That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
The best hotels, one of the best hotels have peepholes behind the
right. And I'll have to admit, to this day, I think that's one of the most terrifying non-violent scenes I've ever seen.
Where he's just, it's just, you know, because he's just like, she leaves, he's got that kind of weird moody look on his face, you're like, what's all this about? And then it's just like, oh, this isn't okay behavior, there's something a bit wrong with Norman.
But I think that scene is just fantastic, actually, because really it's such a good use really of the power of suggestion. You see very, very little compared to what's seen now, and yet, you know, it's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, because as soon as you know that scene's coming, like even having seen it once before, you're like, oh, okay, this was the bit I was waiting for. And I hadn't, again, not really remembering the film, hadn't remembered quite how early in the film it happens, because that's what I remember about the film, this scene. So I'm like, what then happens afterwards? But yeah, as soon as she turns the shower on, I'm looking at Dave going, oh no, I can't even watch this. Like, oh, this scene, no.
And I was thinking about that because it's like, it must have been, because like, you know, Norman goes back to the house and then the mother comes out and like our famous shower scene. But it's like, I forgot how, like, that would have been terrifying in the 60s.
Yeah.
Because I remember like the original House on Haunted Hill was made in the late 50s. And that, like, comparatively was so clumsy, where you look at this and you're like, that's actually pretty. It's like, there's a lot of like women in bras, like, and then she's having a shower and it's just like, it's the music and you've got like the stabbing.
Yes,
and
also the outline in the shower curtain. So that's before even the knives. It's when she's just having a nice relaxing shower. She's had a hard time. She's made her decision. And you're right, JP, you're feeling this kind of, for all the peephole stuff, you're like, oh, maybe he's just a bit of a creepy perv, right? And then I thought, well, he's gone away. And now she's just like, she's just quite relaxed. And
then you see a dark shape that appears through like the shower curtain. And
that was it for me. That was the stabby. So the stabby feels old to me, whereas the looming before the stabby, just fabulous, just brilliant, just utterly scary.
That was another one of Hitchcock being like a total psychopath and actually like running at like Janet Leigh with an actual fucking knife, and those are real screams of terror.
Oh, really?
I feel like that was, you know, like as similar to like Tippy Hedren and the Birds kind of thing. I have a weird feeling that he was just like, whoever like because I guess it was like, what's his face who was doing the stabbing. He went, no, you've got to do it like this. And he just grabs the knife and just like starts going at her. And apparently like that, I don't know if that's like an old wives' tale, but apparently like some of the footage of her screaming in terror is because Hitchcock was like, you've got to be scarier. And she's going, fuck. But yeah, I don't know if that's true. That's what I heard.
And the thing is,
go ahead, JP.
sorry, I was just going to say, as a relatively quite short scene, actually, it's very, very effective, isn't it? Because I mean, there's the looming, you know, the expectation of something happening. It happens, like I said, I mean, to me, it's terrifying, really, without being violent. You never see, you know, knives penetrating anything like you would now. And then basically there's, you know, the blood, or at least the grey stuff in the shadow. Yeah. And she, you know, the suggestion of life going when she hangs onto the curtain and it pops all the curtain rings, and then her body, and then going into her, looking at her eye, you know.
Oh my god, that scene.
That was
eye shot is so fucking good. Yeah, for sure.
Her eye, and then zooming out, and her face like being at this really unnatural angle planted on the ground. Yeah, brilliant.
It's very good.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole scene's probably what, I don't know, a couple of minutes, a minute. I mean, it's nothing.
At most, for sure.
And then we get this pan to the money, and then you could almost end it there. You could almost end it as a short film there, like as some kind of morality tale.
That's right. It could have been a really nice moral ending, couldn't it?
That's right. That's not what happens, and we're glad.
But also the fact that he doesn't obviously profit, so he doesn't look inside. He just wants to tidy up. So you know the money's there, and you're thinking, is he going to discover it and do something?
Yeah.
But of course not. And it just, you know, so all the angst she went through, stealing that money and all the benefits she might have got, and then, you know, basically, you know, the error of ways and all that stuff has suddenly gone when that money gets chucked in the boot of the car.
Yeah, exactly. Like just unceremonious. Yeah, so he comes to clean up because his mother has killed her. Like, you know, everything in the boot of the car is going to ditch it. But you're right, like misses the money. Then comes back and sees the newspaper, just picks it up, and it's just like there's a lot of, and he just exactly throws it.
That would be one heavy newspaper. One heavy newspaper is being disregarded.
He's got all these things.
They were $100 bills. You're right. That would be heavy.
It would be heavy.
Yeah, anyway, like throws in the car.
But yeah, I like also that he starts. Sorry, with the because does he not, before he gets rid of the body and whatever, but he does get the mop, and so he does it like, there's like the cleaning and then the cleanup is a bit of a weird order, I found, because it was like, I will clean the bath and everything and then I'll move, because
I was like, he was probably putting it off.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's a good point. But you would have thought that you would remove, as I say, you'd remove the body and then but he's like, the body is on the shower curtain.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna clean my bathroom.
And then drag out the shower curtain with the body.
Absolutely. In terms of logistics,
you're always behind Norman.
I 100% agree logistically, but like, you would put it off. Like I've got to put this.
It's like, right, like I'll move it to the side. I'll clean the bathroom. All right, there's still the dead body on the shower curtain. I best be moving that now.
Also, he hadn't moved the car yet. He had to back the car up.
Yeah,
that's true. No, you're right, Dave.
Yeah.
Logistically,
that might be the cleaning order that his mother suggested he takes, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, who minds a body? You've got a mop. Everyone's got a mop.
Everyone has a mop.
Yeah. Anyway, so pops everything in that car, and then just dumps it in a lake.
Actually, and I love that moment of tension when the car stops in the bog, and you think he's going to be trapped, and then it goes down.
Yeah. It's quite sympathetic. You actually spend, I had forgotten quite, like Karen says, I remembered the shower scene and that was it. I saw this film 20 years ago and didn't remember anything about it. And you spend a lot of time with Norman. You spend a lot of time with Norman, experiencing what Norman experiences and becoming, sympathetic is probably the wrong word, but becoming very familiar with him and what's happening with him. And
sort of more understanding in a way, perhaps.
Yeah. So in the swamp she goes.
And I think he also,
with the money.
And I mean, he knows that she's used a false name, so he's thinking she's run away from something, so possibly thinks this will all be okay, and his mum will be okay in all of this. But then, of course, people are after this money, and after finding Marion, but also after finding this $40,000
money. Yeah.
$40,000.
So is that when we get the private investigator?
Yep.
Is that the next scene?
We've got the private investigator, but we've also, when is it that her sister goes to chat to the man? So it turns out, Marion is very close.
Yeah.
Marion, it turns out this motel was actually only, 10, 15 miles or so from where she was actually heading. And so, of course, people all think she's heading for him anyway, which is exactly what she was doing. So yeah, her sister is looking for her. So does that happen first, or the private detective?
No, it's the same scene. So basically the
sister
turns up to like Sam being like, have you seen her? And he's like, what are you talking about? Blah, blah. And they're having a conversation. And then you've got like your private detective with his hat and his little coat, and he just like trots in at the end of the scene.
And then so much face.
Another big face.
So much. That's the face I really remember in this film. It's just like detective face.
Yeah. And so then he basically eavesdrops the last part of the conversation and is like, where is she? And then they're just like, who the hell are you? And then they have the conversation where they don't want to get the cops involved. They figure we'll get a private detective, get the money back. Like, we don't need to make a big deal about this. And then so the private detective doesn't believe that Sam doesn't know where she is. She thinks that he's hiding her. And then...
But importantly, I think at the start of that scene, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's writing a letter to Marion essentially saying, we should just get married. We shouldn't worry about this, like money's money, whatever. I can't remember the gist, but like that was the essence of it, was
the sister,
which also makes it so heartbreaking that it's like, well, she'd also decided to give back the money, and it would have all in some way worked out, maybe penniless but together. But then the sister arrives and is like, well, she's gone, she's clearly coming to find you. And that's when the private detective kind of takes over and starts going around all
he's like
the motels.
Motels
and hotels in that area, going, well, she must be headed this way. And finds his way to the Bates Motel, of course. And suspicious Norman.
Suspicious Norman being suspicious as ever. Oh, I don't know, people came here. I don't know what a person is. Nothing ever has happened. Oh, the people who were here last week. Oh, people. Oh, yeah, no, her. Yeah, no worries.
Well, that's
like smooth, Norman, smooth.
Yeah, so in some ways, he's no different actually to Marion, is he? Because basically, he's not good at covering anything up, really. Because, as you say, as he's questioned, he quietly just backtracks and then just keeps admitting stuff. So no wonder people keep coming back. I mean.
Yeah.
Is there something wrong? Why am I acting like there's something wrong? Don't ask that.
That's right.
And so the private detective looks at the book, right, and then sees this like Marie Samuels, and was like, oh, well, her boyfriend name was Samuel. That's like a pseudonym. Where did she go? And he's
didn't he have handwriting though? Didn't he have a handwriting?
I'm sorry, you're right. You're true. Yeah, and they had like matched the handwriting, and then quizzes Norman as to where she went, and he was just like, she left early in the morning. And he doesn't.
Then more and more comes out, because then he talks about them having sandwiches. Then he talks about his mother seeing her or something, and it's like, all right, well, can I chat to your mum then? Like, let me go up to it. Like,
and he's like,
and you can see the silhouette of the mum in the window.
That's right.
So he's like, well, she's there. Can I go and chat? I won't be any bother. He's like, no, she's not well. She's tired. No, I'll just go and chat to her. No, you can't do that. And it's like, this is just not going to happen. And it's like, well, do I need a warrant for this? If I come back with all of this, can I chat to people?
That actually made me laugh. When originally he's like, can I see the rooms? Do I need a warrant? He's like, no, you can come with me and like change the
I'll change the beds.
And the guy was just like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Like, it was just this very, it's like, it was this very, like, it didn't need to be said. It was just this very like, no, I'll come with you, but I'm not helping you change the beds. No.
And that was that. So we were saying, for all like, we were taking this film very seriously because we were like invested in it, but like there were 3 or 4 lines Norman Bates has in this film that I just really, really enjoy, just given the context of everything going on. And one of them was around that time with talking about,
don't you hate damp sheets? They've got a weird smell. It's just kind of a creepy smell.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, that's the problem. That is the problem.
It's just so throwaway. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's probably Hitchcocking Hitchcock inserting just a few sort of little black comedy
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Because
Yeah.
there are, like, as I say, as well as that line, there are like 3 or 4 things about being a bit mad or being a bit crazy or something. But like, yeah, just he's just got some quality lines. But yes, the detective is clearly not convinced, nor were any of us, by Norman Bates. And he phones Marion's sister, whose name escapes me, and says, look, I've been at the motel. She has been here. Apparently she left early. There's something not quite right about this. So I'm gonna swing by the Bates Motel again, chat to them, and then I'll be back within an hour or so.
Yeah, like very specifically says I'll be back within the hour, like with it, like an hour, like if not earlier, basically. So we've been given like a very specific time frame of when he should reappear. But
and we're back in your films, Dave, for like, you know, back in the day when no one knows where anyone is, and you're phoning from phone boxes, and then if both people leave a certain place, then they don't know where anyone's gone. So it's like you do have to have all these scheduling issues, because otherwise it's all really difficult.
Yeah, people just don't know where everyone is all the time. Fast.
that's true. And so he goes back and he's creeping around. And
and I don't think it's
Hello, sorry I couldn't partake today.
No, that's all right.
Oh, all right. How was your lunch?
It was, well, don't even go there. Hopeless.
You're being recorded right now, and this is going on the internet. Let me just say anything.
Anyway, oh, sorry, I better go.
No, you can stay, but just if you're going to answer anything about that lunch. I don't know what the lunch was, but just you went, oh, it was, and I just wanted to tell you that before you finished.
Yeah, no, it was, food was fine, but the service was terrible. It's a new cafe on the corner.
We won't. Oh, on the corner?
Yes.
That corner?
That corner, corner of our street. Yeah.
It doesn't, it's this place where like nothing succeeds. And then like every year they'll reopen something and you go like this one, and you're like, no, not this one.
I used to work in a place like that.
It's shaping up to be a bad one as well. So it's amateur hour really, but anyway. All right, I better go because I actually have to make some calls to work.
All right.
But anyway, so I'm sorry.
Next time, Helen.
I know it was my kind of horror movie, that one.
You've got to, Helen, you got to send a headshot, and I'm not even kidding.
Okay.
He'll explain later.
All right. Okay. See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Is Miff here? Is that why you're looking at the floor, Dad?
That's right. She was pitter-patting around, but she's gone down again now.
Ah, true.
Otherwise, we have to get a headshot
of her as well. Yeah.
So where do we get to? The detective.
Yes,
he goes to the house.
Yeah.
Because he wants to go and speak to the mother.
Yeah.
So we actually get to go in the creepy house.
Yeah.
And we have this amazing, great shot, and I'm not even sure what's weird about it, where he's coming up the stairs and the camera's backing away from him, and everything just, I don't know how to describe it other than everything looks weird.
Yeah.
Everything looks weird and upsetting, and I love it.
It's really unsettling. Yeah. So he's like, one of them says a thing, and then it like, and it's just, and then you've got this great thing where you've got a woman with a wig and a dress on running out and just stabbing the shit out of him at the top of the stairs.
As he falls downstairs.
Yeah, I think that I liked, as you were saying, Dave, so he goes up the stairs and it's weird, but then the shot when the mother encounters him is actually from above.
Yeah, it flips.
So again, you don't recognize anything. There's just an old woman with a large knife, and in actual fact, I'd forgotten that she doesn't actually kill him on the top of the stairs. He falls down, but then goes down and continues to actually use him as a bit of a pincushion. And I've forgotten about more knife action, basically.
Yeah, that's absolutely
and
right.
is that, I don't know if it's in that scene, but there is a scene where we see a door in the house slightly ajar where Norman is talking to his mum, and we're above. So that camera angle, whenever, one of the times we're in the house, it might have been in that scene, but we don't get to go in the room, and that is just so effective, where you're like, why can't I go in? And why am I up here? Why am I looking down in this open doorway that I can't go in while Norman's chatting to his mum? This is really upsetting, but it's so well done.
The camera goes up across the doorway almost as if it's going to go over the wall, like a stage production almost, and then it's just kind of like,
that's it.
We're just
That's all
going
you're
to
getting.
the stairs. because Hitchcock.
Yeah.
So then we have Norman taking yet another car and body to the swamp.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, poor Norman. He's had to like clean up so many dead bodies in like the past like however many hours. Like, poor guy. He just wants to stuff his birds and drink his milk.
Basically, it cuts to him at the swamp, kind of like rubbing his brow, like because he's just had to chuck so many cars and so many swamps lately.
Yeah, I'm very tired. My goddamn mother.
Yeah, and clearly that swamp's much bigger and deeper than we realised.
Yeah,
I know, because there's more missing people. So like he's come at it from all angles.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
What a champion.
And then
so then we cue back to Marion's sister and her man, and they're like, okay, well, it's now been 3 hours. The detective's not turned up. I don't know what's going on. We should go find him. And the dude's like, nah, look, it's probably fine. Don't worry about it. It's like, no, like he was very specific. It's going to be within an hour. We have waited. This is a long time, and he was definitely going back. And so, but they separate, right? Because they were maybe going to go together, or Marion's sister was going, or whatever. But ultimately, it's back to this issue with not having their phones. So someone's got to wait where the detective was going to be, so that we know who's wherever.
So Samuel's kind of like, she's like, I'll go, and he's like, no, you're a woman. So
yes.
No, you're a woman. You have to stay here and wait for a person.
Yeah, no, you'll never find it because you can't do things.
See, I actually took that as, no, you won't find it, because you went, no, you're a woman. I went, no, you won't find it. I'm from here and it's off the beaten highway. But
I'm a local and you're a woman.
I took it as, I'm a local. Dave took it as, you're a woman. And we both had our own respective laughs, because I was like, I like that you're taking the just the women side of things.
It's interesting you should comment about that, because I thought the sister was actually one of the strong character, because she persevered, she made the decisions, all that sort of stuff. So I thought as a character, she was pretty strong actually.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I thought she was fantastic.
It was like that she's the equivalent of the primary school teacher in The Birds.
Oh yeah.
She's like that like the sidekick strong woman who's just like, nah, we're doing it like this.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And she also like was very much seeing the good in folk too, because she like, so it's clear like she is trying to also get Marion so that they can resolve all this and get the money back where it needs to be, so there's no more trouble, and so they don't involve the police. She's got this detective and whatnot, and private detective, and so she's acting to look after everyone, and very strong character. But I just assumed she might not find her way to the motel.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed it was racial bias from the 60s.
Racial bias?
Yeah, racial bias, gender bias from the 60s.
Yeah.
Some kind of problem with the past. I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, the man goes to the motel.
Yes.
And does he meet Norman? He does.
No, he sneaks.
Can't find him.
I can't find him.
He can't find him, and then he's like pounding on because like he can see the mother in the window, and like I'm pretty sure he knocks on the door, and like she just doesn't open the door, and he's like, Norman's out, and the old woman wouldn't open the door.
Oh yeah, because is Norman not like getting rid of bodies and junk, so he might not be in.
Exactly. Norman's very busy.
Oh, that's what happens.
Yeah. So he's gone. Yeah, that's right. So he like rocks up, finds motel. Yeah, can't find Norman. Like knocks on the door, sees the woman in the window, like, and then that's it. He's got to go because no one's answering the door.
And so he goes back to Marion's sister.
Yeah.
And they have a chat about like, well, the detectives. No sign of the detective.
Yeah.
No sign of Norman. What are they? Well, no sign of anyone at the motel. What are they going to do? And that's when they decide to actually speak to the local police force.
Actual law enforcement. Like the first time ever that someone has contacted some actual law enforcement about these law problems.
But when they're in bed, so like really antisocial hour.
Rocks up at some older people's house and it's like, all this stuff is happening, and it's just like,
and I thought, the appearance in the dressing gowns is very casual.
Yes.
Very casual, yes, absolutely. At least put your hat on me.
That's right. Oh, and his badge. No credibility without a badge.
That's absolutely right.
He could have just stuck on his dressing gown as well.
That's right. That's right.
But they don't seem massively put out by having folk in their house chatting about it. They're just like a
They
bit
make some
amused.
snide comments about like, because when
Yeah.
they get like, we should like ring up the like, like, oh yeah, obviously he didn't answer the door because it was like nighttime and there was like a stranger knocking on the door. Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
are you doing? So it was
Like
just
he
like
says-
comments.
Yeah, he probably just doesn't answer his door in the middle of the night like some people.
Yeah. That's right. So yeah, so basically the sister flags like, you know, they've got this issue. The sister stole a bunch of money and pissed off, and then like there was a private detective. This is why he reckons he tracked her down to here. Went back to check because the guy was a bit strange and like, you know, disappeared. We went to check it out. No one. Anyway, so there's a reveal that the mother, who was sitting in the window, has actually been dead for 10 years.
Yeah.
Which is a
Yes.
problem.
Yes,
Yes.
she and her partner both died.
Yeah.
And yeah, also the chat they keep putting out, which seems perfectly reasonable, is that the private detective more than likely just took the 40,000 himself
Yeah.
and has disappeared,
Or, like, yeah,
or is
basically,
pursuing her,
yeah.
continuing to pursue her to get the 40,000.
Worked out where
so-
she'd gone and was just like chasing her for the money.
yeah. So it's ultimately it's not a problem, and really we all know that Norman won't hurt anyone. He's a very nice man. It's all fine.
Those beautiful
so
eyes. He's a little, you know, a bit reclusive.
yeah,
He's
lived in the
not-
community for ages. It's
Loves
fine.
his mum though.
Yeah.
Loves his mum.
Maybe too much. We find out later.
I don't know. I'm still all in. I think he's a good guy.
You're still on Team Norman.
Yeah, I'm still on Team Norman for sure.
Sure.
And then how did we end up at the church? Did they stay for like?
I was just thinking about that.
I don't know how that. Now in my chronology, I can't
From
figure
the
it.
church, yeah, exactly. They get to the point where like we're not satisfied. Like we're at the church for some reason, and now we're gonna go and we're gonna pretend we're gonna be a married couple.
Yeah,
And
because
why are they at the church?
I think the
Because
police
they go
officer
to
did
find
go.
him. They
Yeah,
go to find him the next day,
yeah, he's at church.
and they say to him, "Oh, are you gonna go out there?" And he says, "Oh, I've already been there.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Cleared the whole thing up. There's no
Yeah.
problem."
Yeah, he said he saw both of them and they both went on their merry ways. So
That's
that's
it.
what
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You
Because he said
otherwise?
the detective didn't come back. So he went to talk to Norman, and Norman
Yeah.
had been like, the guy came, he left. Like, yeah, no, he didn't come back. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, he's just gone. Yeah, that's right. So then
So
then
They
you
don't,
decide to
they're
go.
not happy because again, Marion's sister has said, well, actually, I trust the detective. Like I totally trust the detective. So actually, I don't believe this account. Because I think Dave is leaving us for another beer potentially.
Bye, Dave.
Oh, I thought you were trying to do a Hitchcock shot, you know, and actually.
Very low budget shop. So yeah, so they decide to go to the motel and pretend that they're like married couple and try and get the lowdown themselves of what's going on. If no one else can resolve this, they can go and resolve it. So go to the motel and try and check into a room. And that's all really awkward as well.
It is, because it's just like, oh, just here. It's actually a business trip. I've got to sign the ledger. I've got to see this thing, you know, and it's just this very,
So it's almost too awkward to be believable, that little bit for me.
Yeah, it's really, yeah. But then, I don't know, like, I think he's had so many visitors that, you know, normally wouldn't have that, like, yeah, I think this is very distracting, Dave. I get the impression though that Norman doesn't really seem to be going with it either. He's a bit like, really? More people?
Yeah, because it is like, yeah, you don't have to sign the thing. And the guy's like, oh, no, it's for work, so I do have to. And then the guy goes like, oh, and then he's like, do you have any bags? And he's like, no, I don't have any bags. And then he's like, okay. And then it's like, well, this is a first. Like most places would make you pay like a deposit if you don't have any bags. And he's like,
They're
oh,
clearly just coming for sexy time.
yeah. And it's like,
Paying
well,
by the hour.
And yeah, like it's just very, yeah, it's all a bit strange, isn't it?
I don't know. I remember thinking at the time, I really enjoyed how different the interaction was to Norman's interaction with Marion Crane.
Yeah.
Marion Crane.
Yes.
It's a completely different kind of interaction. It's really
Yeah.
confrontational. Maybe it's because he's a man, maybe, or maybe it's because just his whole vibe when he goes in. I can't decide.
I think you're right. Like I think
Yeah.
you know he goes in a very different way. Like in like
Yeah.
obviously like they're not being subtle. So as you said, it's like yeah, I don't think like Norman believes that they're just like there as a couple or whatever, because Sam is being very strange and direct and a bit not aggressive, but like very I don't know what the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, but see, I would have said aggressive almost comparatively,
Yeah.
because he really has
Comparatively.
Norman against almost against the door frame, doesn't he? Questioning him, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going on? Bet you wish you had $40,000.
Oh yeah, that bit that comes. Yeah. So anyway, so they get. So they sign in. They see the name on the. I want to keep calling it a ledger, the book, whatever. Anyway, so they get room 10. So they go to room 10, and they're just like, all right, now we're gonna go out. We're gonna
So
sneak.
she the sister checks that room 1 is open so that she can, because the door is open, so that she could go and have a wee explore later on if she wanted and actually see if there's any sign of her sister at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, they head to their room.
But I think one of the lines that I like is like they head to their room and they decide to go like sneaking around, and they go out and they're like, oh, if we see him, let's just tell him that we're taking air. And I just love the fact that I was like, yeah, you don't say that anymore. You wouldn't be like,
Taking
oh,
the
hi,
air.
Taking the air.
Yeah.
Just passing the time.
Yeah.
Just taking air.
Passing the time outside.
But yeah, so they go into room 1.
Mm-hmm.
And wait, what does she find?
She finds a note that says $40,000 on it.
In the toilet.
In the toilet, yeah. Because
you were saying this was deeply shocking because apparently toilets were uncommonly depicted in films in America in the 1960s.
Yeah, because actually, so I you know, Sophie, I like to either go in my Wikipedia or I go off on a wee tangent to try and read more about the films we watch. Yeah. But yeah, apparently in the book, it's actually something like finding something innocuous like an earring or whatever. But actually in this, she'd written that note. She was clearly working out how much she still had to pay back, because obviously she'd spent, I mean, this is what I love with this sum, because I was like, what have you spent? I know you spent 700 in the car, but like, can't you do that sum in your head? But you know, she'd written the 40,000 and I was like,
40,000 minus 700, and then she's written the answer, and I was like, yep.
Yep, we could do that. I mean,
you nailed it. Don't you work with money? Don't you work for like a real estate agent or something?
Maybe she always does everything, but maybe she likes records. But then she realized that, so right at the start, she couldn't keep this record, so ripped up that note and had thrown it in the toilet.
Yeah.
And
which is good because it was important for the plot.
It was. And so her sister sees this with the number 40,000 and she's like, this is too much of a coincidence.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But yeah, so as we said, like, it's interesting reading about that they were saying that whatever website I was reading this on, that it was almost as shocking to see a toilet as it was the shower screen. And you mentioned earlier on too, where like even when Norman Bates is showing her into her room in room 1, and he's like, he wouldn't even say bathroom or toilet or whatever, he was like, and there's the
it's true. So apparently even in the Brady Bunch, you see the bathrooms a bunch of times, but you don't see a single toilet in any of the bathrooms in the Brady Bunch.
Really?
Yeah.
But also, and also, I mean, they never had marital beds until some point in time. There was always, couples always had single beds, didn't they, when you saw them
like
in the
that was like the outrageous thing about the Brady Bunch, right, is that there were shots of like, what are their names? Mike and Carol in bed, like at night chatting to each other. And apparently like that was quite risque. So they could do that, like that was it. No, it's like if we're going to have people sitting in the same bed, talking to each other, we could not possibly show a toilet in this TV series.
and no hanky-panky at all.
100%. Well, no, but also, you know, he wasn't really into it.
I thought that the bunch, like, this is backtracking a little bit, but see when he's moving the body and she's clearly naked, like they must have had to do it so many times to not catch anything, because...
You reckon they didn't do like flesh-colored undies back then?
Well, I think they must have, but
to not see.
The mind tries to see. And the mind tries to see the bits. This is not a revelation, I hope, but the mind tries to see the bits. I was trying to see the bits subconsciously. I'm probably constantly trying to see the bits. And you don't see any bits. And I think it's quite a complicated maneuver that he puts her through. Yeah. And I think they just must have had to do it a bunch of different times.
That's an interesting comment, Dave, because I thought at the time when he picked up the body, it was actually quite easy.
Yeah.
You'd think picking up a dead weight with, you know, sort of limbs would be a little harder, even wrapped in a shower. In plastic.
Especially because like that's a carpeted room, so you've got your shower curtain on the carpet. Like that's going to be like a bit of friction there. Right?
And he's quite a skinny man that's not even really eating his sandwiches. So like,
he sometimes drinks milk. Like,
So anyway, the toilet,
Yeah.
the toilet. So they see that and they know that they think things are sus. So then she goes up to the house.
Yeah, so like he goes to distract Norman basically, why? Because she's like, we got to talk to the mother. And then obviously though, like Sam knows some shit is going to go down because he's like, here's how it works. I'm going to distract him. You go talk to the mother. If you find anything out, don't fucking come and tell me. Just bail. Like, will you be able like take the car and find your way back to town? So
and don't worry, I'm not going to blow your cover by like overtly mentioning $40,000 and the fact that your sister was here.
He is the least subtle man in the world, that Sam.
Yeah, he's there mainly to be sort of part lead man and pretty face, isn't he, really?
Yeah, he's there to be looked at. Well, again, like the Birds, we established that like the main guy in the Birds, it's like, you know, he's got his like chiseled jaw, but he's like one of the least interesting characters.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So she goes up to the house
And
where the action is.
I think maybe my comment at that point, so I go off tangent, but I really love her coat. So you know, she's like going up the hill. Like I just love the outfits as well in this. So she's wearing this great kind of capey coat thing, but she's like powering up the hill to go into this creepy house.
Is anyone else bothered that the Bates Motel house doesn't have banisters going up to it?
Oh,
Like the stairs seem very steep for no banisters for me, and I just
I wasn't
whenever
bothered
I
at the
saw
time, but yeah, now you've said that. That seems like quite like
see
dangerous.
Norman or someone spindly in a spindly fashion bounding up the stairs to at a time, and I just think that looks unsafe to come down.
No, you're right, Dave. It is.
It's just a comment. You don't have to respond to it.
Yeah. So she goes in the house.
And speaking of the house, I actually loved all the stuff when she walked in. You know, how that lobby was so ornate. You know, with as they say these days, objet.
Was there not like a weird cherub or something on a stand?
Yeah.
Like, it's just weird.
Yeah.
Some of this.
All this amazing stuff. You'd almost expect the Addams family to be there as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she goes upstairs. She goes into the bedroom.
Oh yeah.
It would have been the mother's bedroom.
There's a weird kind of body-shaped depression on it.
Yes. Yeah. And we've had at some point this chat between Norman and his mum, that he's having to hide her at some point in all of this, which again, another chat that we've not seen.
Yeah.
But, because people have been coming around and asking questions. And she's like, oh, you're not going to put me down there again, wherever it is. I can't remember what it said.
I think literally it was like the basement. Like you can't find me in the basement again.
So yeah, we've already had that. And then she's in this room and she's like, there's dresses in it. There's this body indentation on the bed. So she's like, oh, hang on. Like, I think there is someone that's been in this rather womanly bedroom. Mm-hmm. So she goes further exploring. But
like she scares herself in the mirror. I do like.
Oh my god! I got such a fright with that too.
Yeah. Like you are there and you're on edge, and you go like that, and you see something move. You're just like, "What is that?" And you're like, "Oh, it's me in a mirror." But like, I feel like that was just so believable because it would be the same for anyone. Like you are like freaking out, and she made herself shit herself by seeing herself in the mirror.
And also, I don't know about you, but I actually found the indentations in the bread very impressive. It must have been a very soft diet down. There was some depth there.
And also, and then like got out of it without just like leaving that indentation. Kind of levitated and then just like rolled off without.
That's like, it was
perhaps the chemicals involved in taxidermy are maybe corrosive to the springs or something like that. Maybe there's a scientific explanation.
Yeah, well, there would be usually used formaldehyde, so that's not an unreasonable thing.
Yeah.
You heard it here on Pharmacy.
So she ends up back downstairs when she hears Norman willy-nilly, with no care for his own safety, bounding up the stairs.
Yeah, but has he not a tussle with Sam?
Has a bit of a tussle, bashes him on the head. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
So he's coming back to the house, so she's in trouble. So she then goes and hides, but peers through some more banisters. So I was like, great hiding place. We can still see you. If you keep walking along this corridor, we can still see you.
Like a small child hiding. It's like they walk behind a curtain and just pull it to cover their face. Like that's what it reminded me of. Like you've tried really hard, but like you're not nailing this game at this stage.
Paper bag.
I can't see them. They can't see me.
But saying that, going down those stairs means that she's heading towards the basement, so she continues on that pathway.
We've heard about this basement before.
And I love that moment. There's this great moment that she has where Norman's upstairs messing around and she could run out of the house, but then she looks down and sees this area she hasn't explored yet, and you can clearly see her. Do I run away or do I go and find my sister?
Exactly. It's that horror movie decision.
Yeah.
You should get out of the house. Always get out of the house. But no, you go downstairs or up the
Don't
stairs.
near any stairs.
Yeah.
Get out of the house. Don't go near the stairs. Yeah.
So she has this beautiful moment. She goes down the stairs and she goes and she sees an old lady sitting in a chair.
Yeah, back to
And
her
that's the
in her
scene that
floral
I
dress with the
yeah.
hair. Yeah.
And then goes like, yo, Mrs. Bates, and goes to like spin her around. Turns out she did die 10 years ago.
Bam, face.
Yeah, face, another face, but the gross, like decaying mummy face.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about that is they didn't dwell on that. So you got the impression,
Yeah.
you know, the reaction you wanted out of that, you know, the bam sort of thing. But then it moved on to the next bit quite quickly. And I thought that was good because, you know, you got the shock value, but then instead of dwell on it and thinking, oh, you know, it's just an old mummy sort of thing, no pun intended, you then move on to the next bit. And so you're still left with the shock of that and you don't get a chance to almost resolve that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, and of course, the next bit is
Old mate Norman.
Old mate Norman in his mum's clothes and a wig comes charging in with a knife.
Trying to stab again.
Did a bit of a stabby stab. But
Turns out
Sammy's looking up.
Thank God for Sammy.
Oh my God, thankful. Yeah, like, because if like he hadn't,
He did have something to do.
You're right, because if he didn't grab him, everyone's dead, and that's the end of the movie. We've had no resolution.
None whatsoever. Another car, another swamp.
Yeah.
Norman,
Unless you're really strongly on the side of Norman getting to continue with his isolated lifestyle.
Well,
and doing what he
I
wants,
have to say, by the time we get to this point, I'm wavering on Norman.
You've gone like, I think Norman's doing bad things now. I don't know if I believe him anymore.
Which is funny because earlier in the film, I was just all in.
Right there with him.
Yeah.
And his taxidermy and sandwiches.
Absolutely. Taxidermy and sandwiches.
And clean bed sheets, no doubt.
That's right.
And I thought Norman as his mother, you know, the expression as he sort of went down, like he was almost catalytic, was sort of interesting. Like didn't really sort of put up a fight, but almost like froze. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he goes like this, and then he grabs him, and he just sort of he just drops. Like he doesn't really.
Yeah, he sort of almost sort of freezes and Sam, sort of pulls him down, and he goes down with his mouth open, like he's sort of trapped in some way. I thought that was an interesting, you know, because he didn't keep stabby and turn around like you would.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't try to. He just basically got. It was like, in fact, it was quite easy to stop Norman.
That's right.
And then he gets, we then cue to, I guess, the police station, right?
Police station,
Yeah.
And then
nobody in this film, or maybe ever, has had as much fun as this psychiatrist is having with the fact that Norman Bates is in his cell. He is having a lovely time. To the point where he's just like, the sister's like, so is my sister dead? And he's like, yeah. Now the thing about psychopaths is, blah, 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 blah. Is she really dead? Yeah. But the thing about Norman Bates is,
he loves it, and he like the kick he's getting out when he goes like, did Norman Bates kill Bullet? And like, yes and no, and it's like, I got a story from the mother, and he just like loves the fact that he keeps alluding to the fact that it's the mother, and then he finally explains it, and he's like, yeah, he thinks it's his mother.
Yeah, did you find him as a character perhaps a little overly dramatic?
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you know, like the other characters in the film, I was sort of waiting for the punchline as well. I thought he'd never get there.
It's just like, because it takes it like if we commented that the actual stab scene, like the original one is quite short. I feel like this scene is like, the explanation scene is much longer than her actually getting murdered in the shower.
But I really enjoyed it, I have to say.
Yeah,
even
great,
like the theatrics of this explanation, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
So it turns out though that sorry, go ahead.
Wasn't it really?
Yeah. But so there's a big reveal. Turns out that after Norman's dad died, he did not cope particularly well, and it was just him and the mum for a long time. Then enter new partner. Norman couldn't really deal with it. She fucking killed them all. But then there was the guilt of him having killed the mother, and so then he sort of kind of like the mother lives again.
Yeah, what's the mother? What matricide? No, what is it called?
Matricide.
Yeah, I was like, it's just not a term that I've heard thrown about very much. But yeah,
Brings to mind
then-
mattresses
and
it
then
does bring to mind mattresses
rather than
with
numbers.
big indentations.
Yeah, possibly through some kind of formaldehyde spring interaction.
and then I think we like hit like a really good shot where then we've just got like Norman in his cell.
Oh,
Just sitting
Lord.
there having a conversation with his mother in his fucking head, just like sitting there with his little face, which is blank for a long time. And then we get like a really nice, creepy fucking like smile-ish kind of.
Absolutely. And to me, that's the absolute punchline for the film.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
you look straight into his eyes with that evil sort of almost evil, innocent glint, and he says he wouldn't
Yeah.
hurt a fly. That's the
Yes.
absolute punchline for me, I think.
Oh yes.
and there's this little flash, and it's a flash, and it's not overdone, but they've clearly overlaid the skull underneath.
Yeah.
And it's so subtle. It's there, and then it's gone. But it's
So it's like that bit wouldn't hurt a fly. Then you zoom in on him, and then they cut to like them pulling the cars out of the swamp. But as
Yeah.
they do that, there is like the very quick glimpse of just the skull behind him, and now it's it's
so good, so good.
very effective.
It's such a great ending to the film. I mean, because not often, but a lot of the times the ending of the film is sort of a bit of not quite an afterthought, but not quite as punchy as that one. I mean, that ends right in the spirit of the whole film, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's like that. The film starts and ends beautifully. And the other thing that I'd say to Dave I really like is even just some of the incidental parts that tie together. So the bit that I really love, speaking of wouldn't hurt a fly, I was telling Dave this earlier, was you know, when we first go in the hardware store where the sisters come to meet Sam, and there's an older woman and they're going to buy insect killer, but she doesn't want it to hurt insects.
Yeah.
And so you've already got this very weird, like it's weird. It's a weird scene.
Yeah, she doesn't want them to feel pain. Like she wants them to die, but she just thinks that if you're gonna kill someone, like it has to be painless.
Yeah, but it's also, you've got that introduction of an older woman character that is clearly harmless and doesn't want to hurt anything. And then with the Norman, it's just, so good, so nicely done.
And a good example, there's no small part in this film. Like even the guy who works behind the counter gets his moment where he's like, would you go out and get lunch? And he's like, oh, it's okay, I brought my lunch. He's like, well, go outside and eat it.
Yeah, that bit's
Like,
really cool.
every little character gets their moment. Like there's no small character in this movie. The other teller from the other secretary at the
real estate place.
place. Yeah, again, just like a fully fledged, fully developed character who's on screen for all of 30 seconds, but it's brilliant.
And just basically like, just take this pill and your headache will go away. You don't need to go home.
And also it's like,
Get tanked up.
And he was flirting with you. He clearly was only flirting with you because I'm clearly married. It's just so good. And the acting in it is just great. It's just great.
And then from Janet Leigh, we got Jamie Lee Curtis. So thanks very much, mate, for making a great child as well. Although I did see the trailer to the newest Halloween when I was at the movies the other day. I think it's going to be a problem. I think it might be exactly like the old new Halloween, but they're somehow just extending that story further because, spoiler alert, Michael Myers didn't die again, you guys.
Oh my God.
We thought he died again, and he didn't die again. Oh my God, how perfect is that though? Because next week for Halloween, we're doing Halloween. So we have Janet Leigh and then we have Jamie Lee Curtis next week. How is that for poetic justice? Something?
But no, JP, that was a very good introduction to Horror Film Club. Good choice. And I was reflecting on your film in the context of all of the ones that we watch a lot. And actually, no offense to Event Horizon or The Thing or The Shining, but I do think
Psycho is definitely
it's the best of them all. You did a good job.
Oh, well, I'm glad you liked it. I mean, like I said, it's certainly one of my favourites, but, for a whole range of reasons. And now having discussed it with you guys even a little more, there's probably, there's things I hadn't noticed about it, which is probably why it's such a nice film, because you can go back and see other bits that are more subtle that you've missed, really, that, as a master filmmaker, that's what Hitchcock delivers, I suppose.
And I think what's interesting too is like what you were saying earlier, JP, was like some of the choices, like the black and white is so effective in this. But then reading about the film, it was like Paramount didn't want him to make it because they thought it was not a good look. It was a scary, weird thing. They read the book and were like, nah. So he had to make it himself and budget himself. And so the black and white wasn't necessarily an artistic choice. It was more a cost consideration. And yeah, I think it's interesting, that combination of like, you know, him just being so invested himself in this and making this one happen because he thought the story was interesting. And also just some of the changes apparently that were made to the book, because Marion's character, it doesn't start with her. It's so much more about Norman Bates apparently. And so even the decision to have it focus and the tension build up with her rather than this grotesque, because apparently Norman Bates is supposed to be like a overweight, drunken person that only becomes his mother when he's had quite a lot of alcohol. Whereas actually, again, Alfred Hitchcock, again, based on my reading, which may have been Wikipedia, but this is what I'm going with. But apparently having the casting choice that he did was to make Norman Bates a more likable, sympathetic character so that the audience just don't see it coming and are so invested. And I just think some of these choices are just fantastic.
Yeah, look, I agree. And you know, I didn't realise about the black and white, but you're right, because Norman is almost a victim in his own right, isn't he, when you think about it?
Dave was on Team Norman for like, what, 80% of this film.
Long time.
Right.
Long time, right on board with Team Norman. I was very let down by him in the end. I think he let himself down. He let me down. He let the whole team down.
Were you more let down by Norman and what happens towards the end, or the house's lack of banisters?
Yeah, which one was more upsetting, Dave?
Well, I was concerned for Norman's safety.
Okay. And
so
became less worried
probably
about
the banisters. because I was so pro Norman for so long.
Okay.
So that would be his physical safety rather than mental safety, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Physical safety. Well, yeah.
So thank you, everyone. So next week's Halloween for the end of our October
the
special.
original Halloween for Halloween. Beautiful.